In the previous two examples of using 3D object with WATCHOUT, we looked at fairly simple geometry and fairly simple method of texturing it. Now let's look at a slightly more elaborate example. Let's bring in another model first here. This is a model of a car. So again, I just bring it onto the timeline. I position it where I want it, and I'd like it to be rotated so I can see it a little bit from the side. So let's add a Y rotation and spin it around, something like that. Okay, and you can see from the colors here that this object has three texturable areas. It's the body of the car, the wheels, and the glass, the windows up here. So of course I could texture this directly as I did previously by just taking a texture that I have of the mesh itself and drag that onto the car here, and that would texture it. Or I can take this other texture here that just shows some ugly colors on the car, and I could drag it straight onto the car. But of course, dragging a texture directly onto the object doesn't give you much flexibility. For example, something you may want to do with this car is animating it as if it was driving on a road. So if I were just going to take this image of a wheel here, and I could drag that onto the side of the wheel, and it does appear here there in this way, but I can't make it spin because it's just a static image sitting right there. So how do you go about actually animating this and using textures in a more flexible way? Well, that's where one of the new capabilities of WATCHOUT come in very handy. Let's move this off to the side a little bit and scale it down. I do that with Control Option or Control Alt dragging and Control Shift to zoom out. And now I'm going to add another new feature of WATCHOUT called virtual displays. So many new features. We looked at that earlier in another video when we looked at the way we could use it with LED walls and to feed LED wall processors using odd resolutions or odd aspect ratios. But now we're going to look at another application area of virtual displays. It turns out they're really excellent for creating dynamic texturing for like the wheels or the body of the car here. So let's start by adding a virtual display that has exactly the same dimension as the image we put on the wheels, and that was the wheel image over here. So we know it's 383 by 383 pixels. So let's make that virtual display the same size. We want that one that's 383, and let's call that wheels. Okay, I add it and I position it just somewhere off to the side, and you can see as I add that here, it also appears as a media element here. So now anything that would hit this display would become part of this media. So let's take this wheel here. I put that on another layer, and I just put that wheel on the virtual display just like that. And then of course I can use all the standard capabilities of WATCHOUT to animate this, or to layer something on top of it, or move it around, or whatever I want to do, using all the 3D all the standard compositing capabilities of WATCHOUT to create a texture that I can then use for a 3D object. So let's just make this wheel spin here. I can just add a rotation along the z-axis, a regular traditional 2D rotation. So let's rotate this wheel, let's say five revolutions, 5 turns, like that. So you can see it spinning up here, okay? Now if I take that image, the resulting image from this virtual display, and use that as a texture for the wheels, you can probably see where I'm going with this. So first I have to select the 3D object Q, because otherwise I can't drop any image on it. And then I take the wheels image and I just replace what's on here. Right now you don't see anything different because it's the same wheel, but as soon as I start playing the timeline here, you can see as this wheel starts to turn, so does these ones. And you can actually see that all 4 of the wheels are turning, and that's because I set up the texturing inside the 3D object, so the textures for all these four wheels are actually overlapping in the UV coordinates. And we'll come back looking at how this 3D file is made up later on. Okay, so we have a basic understanding of what the virtual display is doing. Let's just look at one more thing to get an even better understanding for how this works. If I were to take this wheel now and just move it off to the side, you see what happens here? So anything that you put on this display anywhere would show up on these wheels. And of course, that means that I can put something on top of this. Let's see if I can find something else that makes any kind of sense here. Not really, so I'm just going to take something else. I'm going to take a piece of the video that we used in an earlier example. I just take this piece of video here and I'm going to just put it right on top of the wheel here. This is going to look really terrible, but never mind for now. I'm making this a little bit semi-transparent by adding an opacity so you can see the wheel through it. Okay, and then I'm just going to run this. I'm going to zoom in here a bit first so you can see. So you can have the wheel spinning there while at the same time you can see the video playing on top of that. And if I move the video over on the virtual display, you see it move here. So you can see anything that hits the rectangle that makes up this virtual display, that becomes the texture that is then applied to the wheel. Okay, so that was a fairly convoluted example. Let's look at something more realistic. So while this wheel is spinning here, I just shift this up a bit so we get some more space here. We want to make the car look more like a car. So we want to have it have a nice shiny body, and we want to have some kind of flowing snowflakes going across it here. So I have prepared here another image of the body of the car that has kind of a glossy shine to it. Actually, we could just bring that in here and you can see what it looks like as a 2D object. So I just bring it in, and here you can see what it looks like from the top. Let's make this a little larger for them. Whoops. I want to be here, want to move this. Okay. So you can see this is what the texture looks like. It's like you're taking the car, looking at it from the top and just stomped on it, just flattened it out. And that's what you need to do to fit a piece of 2D image onto what's really a 3D object. You need to find a way to flatten it, to wrap something around it, and that's what's called UV mapping. We will look at that more in detail when we look at how to prepare a geometry like this 3D file later on, when we look at it from a 3D creation point of view. Right now we just want to use this this texture for the body, and we want to combine that with some snowflakes that I have also prepared as a little video. So let's start by adding a virtual display, again exactly the same size as this video, and we have the image here that's 1024 by 1024. So I'm just going to add another virtual display here with that size. You don't have to make it the same size as the image, but in this case it makes sense because that's the resolution that I have in the image itself. So let's change the name of this. So that will be the body of the car. Okay. And then I'm going to take the image that we have here and I'm going to place that right smack in the middle of that virtual display. Let's zoom out that a little bit to make it a little easier to see. Okay, so I have the virtual display over there, and I have the image of the body of the car. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select the car, and now I'm going to take the, let's see, we have the body here. So I'm going to take the body. That's not the image of the body, but what came from the virtual display we just named body. So I'm just grabbing that, and with the Q selected that controls the that shows the 3D geometry, I take this body and with one single drag, I just drop it onto the car. And you can see now it immediately replaced the image that was on the car. The windows still look bad, so let's just take that same image, just take the image itself and drop that onto the window. Whoops, sorry about that. I need to select first, and then I take this, drop it onto the window. Okay, that's better. So let's now animate some video on top of this. And again, I think you see where I'm going with this. I'm moving this down, and I'm going to put the video on top of it, so I need some more space there. Let's see where we have that snow video. That's right here. So I'm just dropping that here on the timeline, and I'm moving it over to where we have the car. It's a little small, so let's add a scale, and I'm going to shift drag to maintain the aspect ratio here. So now we have the car sitting on top, the snow sitting on top of the car, but the snow doesn't have an alpha channel, it's not transparent, so the car doesn't show through. So what we're doing here is that we're going to change the blend mode from the normal blend mode that just replaced to I think I'm going to try and add here to see what that looks. Yeah, pretty good. Sometimes add may make it a little bit washed out, and then you could go with screen instead, but I think add is okay here. Let's go with that. It gives it a little bit more punch. And now all I need to do to make that show up on the car is, of course, to run that video. And you can see as the video flows across, you have this motion over the car here. Let's loop that video so it doesn't stop right there. So switch over here, turn on looping, and we can take all these cues and just extend them a little bit so we have a little more room here. Maybe we can turn the car around a little bit so you can see the top of it as well. So I'm getting a little cramped on space here due to the screen recording, which I want to do in a resolution that you can actually watch. So let's add a rotation along the x-axis and just turn the car a little bit so you can see the top of it like this. And play that again just so you have a feel for how that actually plays out. And then of course you can animate it in some other way. You can make the car you can make the background move so it looks like the car is actually rolling across a road, or any other thing that goes on around here. And of course you can apply other effects to this. All the compositing capabilities of WATCHOUT are available. So for example, let's add a color tween here, and let's see what we can do with that. So at this point at the beginning we have a white color, and let's see, I move that up a little bit more. And then we're going to change the saturation. So we have kind of a pinkish color, and then we're going to gradually change that color over to a bluish color like that. So now when we run that, you can see this color transformation is applied to the video, and that translates into changing the color. And then since whatever hits this display is then applied as a texture over on the car, that will appear there. Actually, it looks a little bit weird on the windows there. So let's apply that same texture so we have that video also flowing over the window. So I'm going to go back, select the car, and I'm going to look for we call that body. Yeah, that's right. So we call it body, and I'm going to put that also on the windows. Okay, so now we should have the same snowy effect also flowing over the windows, because we are applying this body virtual display as a texture both to the body and to the windows. Even though they are really a separately texturable area, we are applying the same texture to them. So that gives us more control in WATCHOUT what image goes where when you prepare them in that way with multiple texturable areas. Okay, so that was a fairly lengthy tutorial, but I think we covered a lot of ground here. And in a subsequent tutorial, we're going to take a closer look at how you actually prepare the geometry so that it's suitable for use in WATCHOUT in this way.